Right, good afternoon, members and officers. Welcome to the July meeting of North East Derbyshire District Council. Item 1, apologies for absence. Any apologies for absence? No. Councillor Lacey?
Yes, I've got Councillor Hartthorne, Cheetham, Morley, Clegg and Fletcher.
Right, thanks a lot. Councillor Dale?
Councillors Ancliffe, Councillor Rennick and Councillor Stokes. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thanks a lot, Alex. Councillor Adrington Stringer?
Just Councillor Weatherall.
Right, thanks a lot. Item 2, members are requested to declare the existence and nature of any dispute of pecuniary interest and or other interests not already on their register of interest in any items on the agenda and withdraw from the meeting at the appropriate time. Has any member any item of interest?
Sorry,
Councillor
Chair.
Dale?
Going back an item, Councillor Thacker as well, but I think he'd already declared his interest to the officers. So just to, sorry, not his interest, his apologies.
Right,
rather.
thanks, all right, thanks a lot. Move on to item 3 now, please. Minutes of the last meeting to approve as a correct record of the minutes held on the annual council and ordinary council meeting held on the 19th of May 2025. Have you got a mover for that?
I'll move those.
And a seconder?
Seconded, Chair.
Right, do you accept those minutes? All in favour? That's great, thank you. If we move on to item 4 now, Chair's announcement, I'd just like to take the opportunity to offer congratulations and best wishes to Councillor Kerry on his 85th birthday today. Well done, Pat.
Says that's how dedicated he is.
Yeah. Item 5, Leader of the Council's announcements. Councillor Barker.
All right, thank you, Chair. I've been very busy, I think, since my last update that I did to Council. I think the most significant event was the opening of Claycross Active on 27th of June. I know some of you were there. I think it went really well. I was privileged and honoured to be allowed to cut the ribbon, which were very good. And I think it's fair to say this has been a massive milestone for the authority. It's been many years in the making, and there's been many partners all helping to turn the vision into reality, including, I'd say, all elected members of the council. And I'd like to thank everybody that's been concerned with that. We're well aware of the benefits of the physical activity and sports, and this facility will provide loads of opportunities for this. But when you get to see the facility, you'll see it's a lot more than that. It's really good. Like Lee said at the opening ceremony, it's more than just a sports facility. It's a place where people can socialise and a marvellous community facility. It took a lot longer to say that, though. No, it was very good, Lee. So I'd like to place on record again my thanks to the leisure team and our wider officer team and to everybody in the chamber for the roles they've played in creating this facility. And I'm sure it'll be a marvellous thing for the communities, not just to Claycross, but all round the south of the district. And along with leisure centres, I've attended the LJ conference in Liverpool. It was good to meet people from around the country and hear views and opinions on many topics. I attended quite a few plenaries and events that I thought were useful. Most of those events were focused on LGR, listening to how others who have been through the process and the issues that they've had and probably still having. The more you listen, more questions you get. This brings me on to a bit of an update on that. As you recall, in May, Lee, Managing Director, set out chronologically the summary of where we've been and currently where we are, including feedback from the government on the interim submission, and based on this north-south split, a two-unitary model. In a follow-up to that update, I intend to bring you further up to speed on what's been happening since the last council meeting. We've continued to work on the proposal, which has included lots of meetings, hasn't it, Lee?
Yeah.
And data gathering, amongst lots of other things. This continues to demand a lot of time from myself and others, including senior officers. I know Matt and Jane are attending regular meetings as well as. So the demand is set to grow, and over the coming months and years, hence that paper on item 7 that I'll talk to in a minute. You'll be aware that we've gone out to consult the public and stakeholders on the proposals, and I'd urge everybody to complete the survey and encourage all constituents to the same. This will help shape the final submission in due course. Last week, the County Council considered options and agreed in principle the preferred options of a 2 unitary authority model for an area north-south configuration. Not entirely same as us, but with the county have agreed to engage and work with City and all the Derbyshire councils. So it does appear that we're pushing the same direction. So personally, I would welcome the county to the table, and I believe that it's interest for our communities. The more we can make our submission as robust and as authentic as possible, the better, because we all need to share the data and arrive at something that we can all agree to. To do this, it needs lots of data and evidence to feed into the proposal, and to do that in the best way, we have to work together and share what we know. In terms of next step, once complete, we'll be collating and considering the findings of the consultation during August. We will feed that into our proposal, along with further data and insight being gathered from a plethora of resources. I don't use plethora very often, do I?
No.
And all this effort will ultimately lead to a full business case, one that is aspirational and identifies opportunities for transformation and the art of the possible, whilst being authentic and credible at the same time. And that means including challenges, threats and barriers to delivering such a model of local government reorganisation. We hope to bring this to Council early in autumn, before ultimately being submitted to the MHCLG during November 2025. So that's where we are. There's still a lot of work to do, a lot of number crunching, a lot of stuff, but it's a process that we're going through. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks a lot, Councillor Barker. Move on to item 6 now, please. The public submission. There's been no questions submitted under procedure rule number 8 for this meeting. So if we can move on to item 7, reports of Councillor Barker on the increase in capacity for cabinet and LGR. Councillor Barker?
Yeah, thank you. And like you say, the paper's there. I've alluded to it in my announcements that LGR is taking up more of my time. And I'm also aware that I reckon this is easy bit. It don't feel like it, but taking it to bits is one thing. Putting it back together is going to be another. And when all the districts and the counties abolished, we've then got to create something new. And I think that's going to be a massive task for everybody involved. So it's one I definitely need some help with, I think. And Kevin has found that he's got a bit more capacity. I don't know what reason with that. But given his experience that he's gained over several roles, over several years, I think is ideally placed to come on board and help me with that. So hopefully the council will support me in that, in the paper that's in front of you. So it's just to receive and note the decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member wish to speak on that? If not, it's a recommendation that the note is reported. Is it noted? All in favour? Huh? Oh, do you want to? Sorry.
Thanks, Chair.
That's covering that. Councillor Cupid, yeah.
Thanks, Chair. I appreciate this is just a paper to note, and I appreciate, Councillor Barker, it's your right to do so as leader. I guess just as Conservative group and as a member myself, I just sort of want to note a few issues or concerns. The first is, I know it's a relatively small cost, but there is an additional cost to the council, and in the time that we currently live in and the cost of living for residents, that is a concern, the additional cost. I do also think, as a second point, that and perhaps it will come out in future, you know, you've made this decision, but I think that it would be useful to have more clarification on the remit of this new role, because in my mind, and you touched on it quite heavily in your leader's announcements, this LGR is primarily the responsibility and function of the leader of the council, and very naturally, and I know from when I was deputy leader, you go to meetings that nobody else does, even as cabinet members, and you have liaisons. So that's a concern to me, that there'll then be a bit of a disjointed approach by having a cabinet member for LGR. Would also add, I think it would be useful to have, particularly with Councillor Gillett, just as a suggestion, regular briefings, perhaps both of you, 4 members, to keep us up to date. I know you have been updating at full council, but perhaps a cross-party working group or anything like that, to keep us up to date, particularly if there is, this new cabinet role. But just as a final point, I think we do have concerns in our group about the potential duplication of a cabinet member being chair of standards committee as well, because of the right. I appreciate constitutionally it's allowed, but because of that scrutiny duplication, there is a risk that, particularly as we are moving into LGR, there will be conflicts of interest of, potentially standards committee wanting to look into LGR, wanting to look into cabinet positions, and there is then that conflict there. So would urge, without increasing the cost further, I'm sure, there's things that can be done in terms of moving roles around, but would urge and express that concern in relation to that potential conflict of interest.
No, thank you. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I was going to cover similar points, but also if I mention what's highlighted in the report, the cost to the council or the taxpayer, a liability of £10,014. It says in the report that this is mitigated by the fact that Councillor Gillett is also performing that other role. My question would be, is what if Councillor Gillett steps down from one of those roles? It will then cost the full 10,000 from either of those roles. So we're actually creating a liability of 10,000. I can appreciate that we are looking after our colleagues, especially since Councillor Gillett wasn't elected in the recent elections. So that I can appreciate. What I'd like to also ask is, I wasn't elected either in the county council elections, and neither was Councillor Cupid. So if there is any more plums going around or anything like that, please consider us. Thank you.
I have considered it.
Do you want to reply, Councillor Barker?
Yeah, sorry. I've heard what you've said, Charlotte. I think we can look into them sort of issues what you've flagged up, and I think going forward, I think it is. I don't know how it's difficult, because if you start having working parties, you've got different opinions and stuff like that. But in the next 2 years, we're setting up something that's got to last for 50 years. And if there's somebody, if I can gain any experience from anybody else, or any ideas, I'm all ears, because it's going to affect us all going forward. So I think you've made notes, Lee, haven't you, on what was suggested. Yeah. So we'll come back to you on that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Right, we'll try again. The recommendation is that the report is noted. Can we have a show of hands? Obviously, you want to vote on your pad. Show of hands. All in favour? Against? That's carried, thank you. Move on to item 8 now, please. The Council Plan Annual Performance Report 24-25. Councillor Barker.
Oh, that's me, yeah. The Council Plan Annual Performance Report, and I think I meant to bring it in with me and wave it about, because I did print a copy off. Have you got one, Lee? I didn't want to print too much off, because I keep being told it costs a lot of money. But to print them off, we've all got it on as laptops anyway, or wherever, and I think it's a marvellous report, really good. And I'm proud to present that for several reasons. Because I think it is designed to improve people's lives, and it's designed to help communities live long and happy and healthy lives. I think that's what's on the front page. And also we want to make people feel safe and proud to live in a place that also cares for the environment. And I'm also proud because we have successfully delivered against that plan, against a backdrop of change, which is unprecedented, I think. Waste reforms, planning reforms, development of a new local plan, with a very tight time frame, funding reforms, and of course LGR. And yet we are still achieving everything contained in this report. Every day I see pride and passion, hard work, dedication, and people trying to do the best for each other and for their communities and our communities. So again, I want to take this opportunity to thank our staff and indeed everybody in the chamber again, because I think it is a one team. I'll say it, Lee, I'll put it in, look, I can see it over there.
Well done.
It's a one team approach. Everybody is pushing in the same direction. And again, in the report, we've got the 4 objectives: a great place to live, a great place to work, a great place to access good public services, and also to take care of the environment. Like I say, I don't want to go through it all, but I've got a couple of highlights I'd like to pick out. I've mentioned the opening of Claycross Active, which will have citizens' advice in there, and the NHS services, so it will be a community hub, and it'll be a really good facility. Related to that, there's huge numbers of visits to leisure centres across the district. 716,000, I've been told, and I've not counted them myself. But that's how many people have been. I know Dronfield's doing well, Eckington and Killamarsh is picking up, so it's all good stuff. In terms of housing, we've upgraded 288 homes with external wall insulation and provided 89 disabled fertility grants, improving accessibility and energy efficiency. We ensured that more than 100 of our businesses have benefited from the Derbyshire Accelerator programme, exceeding decarbonisation targets. Claycross Jobs Fair connected 149 attendees with employers, and for his own staff, leadership programmes, apprenticeships, digital training have been expanded through the talent pipeline and people strategy. So 2,500 households have been supported with council funded grants, and over 2,100 women have been screened for breast cancer through a partnership working approach just last year. So there are a few other achievements in that thing, so I could go on, but I won't. So please read through the full document, and I'm sure you'll feel the same sense of pride as I do. Cheers, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any member wishes to speak? Councillor Baker?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thank you for that, Nigel. I enjoyed the visit to Claycross Active as well.
Yeah.
It looks good. My comment relates to page 35 of the report, which talks about something new to me, the public spaces protection orders, and it mentions one that's been brought in for Claycross to get rid of antisocial behaviour or help reduce antisocial behaviour there, which coincides with a thing that's very topical in my village at the moment, Wingerworth. We're having a problem, so residents report to me, and I've heard it myself, of vehicles racing through the village with loud noises and motorbikes and cars. I understand there's a similar protection order that we have that could deal with that matter. Am I correct? And if so, could somebody just, not necessarily now, but let us know what the procedure is for reporting such a thing and how it's enforced at the council, please. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Neil. I'm not sure about motorbikes and the noise element. I know it's more for antisocial drinking and kids hanging about. I know the one in Claycross sort of has been effective, and they've done them in other places. The downside to that is they move from else. So you could end up with a public protection order around the whole district if we're not careful, which you can't enforce, basically. So I don't know, Lee, if you want to comment on what you've just, rather than me try and read it.
Rather than upset Mike's system, just to say I've noted it and we'll get back to you. Okay?
Thanks.
Cheers.
Councillor Dale?
Yeah, and similar point to Councillor Baker, and welcome the report, and congratulations to officers in particular and the administration on the achievements, because there's plenty in there, and that's good to see. Just on the issue of antisocial behaviour in particular and public space protection orders, it strikes me that they're a good thing to have in place. They're a good deterrent, but they are dependent on being able to enforce them, and it strikes me that capacity is the biggest problem there, because not only do we put those in place, we have to also have. I think it has to be our officers, as I understand it, who have to go out and issue the fixed notice penalties. And if we've got a particular issue like sort of boy racers, as sort of Councillor Baker's highlighted, it's having the officers there at those times to be able to catch people in the act. So, just whether there's been any assessment of the PSPOs that we already have in place. I know we've got the dog fouling one. I know that we've got the nuisance vehicles one. I think there's another one in relation to Clay Cross. So maybe a bit more information around the effectiveness and the impact that they've had so far would be useful.
Yeah, we can do that. You want to do that?
Yeah,
Me?
I'm happy to.
Oh, it messes all that up. doesn't it?
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me? Alex, you're right. These things, they're not easy. They are time consuming. It does involve a lot of people, but that shouldn't deter us. Absolutely not. In these areas, it's been a long running saga of issues that's got us to that point. I've not got that information at hand, and I'm not sure anybody on this panel will have at hand, but what we can do is perhaps provide a summary of impact, challenges and things of that nature. If members are interested in, these PSPOs and how they work and the rest of it, we can do that for all members. And I say we, I'm looking down the table at Jane. Jane's writing it down. So there you go. No, I think it's interesting and it is something that members do need to be aware of, because it's quite probable and possible that your constituents might ask you that question. It's good to be armed with that kind of information, so thank you for raising it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Right, thanks a lot, Lee. Anybody else?
Councillor Foster.
Yep.
Councillor Foster?
Thank you, Chair. I know that both the previous councillors have spoken on this subject, but I'd like to continue on it. But specifically, when you look at how antisocial behaviour is tackled, it's generally done by the police. The idea behind public space protection orders is it gives powers to the council so they can issue fixed penalty notices. So my specific question is, have those powers, not just the effect of the public space protection orders and all the rest of it, I'm not looking for a woolly answer. I'm wanting to know if these public space protection orders have actually been used and how many enforcement notices have been issued. The council's made a big deal about them before and how it will affect the community. It'll make us all feel safer, a greater, better place to live. Completely with that, and I've got it. But if we're making a big deal about it as councillors, the public space protection order, are we actually using it, or is it just something that goes in a council plan? How many times have we issued notices? So that's my specific question. Thank you, Chair.
Lee?
Yeah. I mean, fair comment.
Yeah, happy to come back. We can definitely add that detail to what I've just described earlier, Councillor Foster. Just if I could though, I know what you're saying and I've got some sympathy with it is ultimately the police, but don't underestimate the amount of effort and resource from this council's officers goes into tackling antisocial behaviour as well as. So maybe we wrap that up as part of the narrative, but diversionary programmes are quite often the solution to try and to stop people becoming engaged in that activity in first place. We've got a really successful track record of that in North East Derbyshire. We've got programmes funded by the Police and Crime Commissioner and previous Police and Crime Commissioners, and it's been very, very good in that regard. So again, stats wise, we can include that, because how many people we engage with that might otherwise be wondering what to do and decide to do something antisocial. It's a big picture, but we play a huge role. We'll include it in all of that report that we've just said. Jane?
Right, thanks.
Got that noted, thanks.
Councillor Barker?
Yeah, just on that, I know I've, Councillor Rennick's not here, but I've been on meetings that she's been at county-wide, and I've been, there's obviously a North East Derbyshire antisocial behaviour group, or whatever it's called, Crime Community Safety Partnership, I think that's better. And our team here with Faye Green and their team, they top a tree. They're really well respected. We're not solving everything. We've all got issues in every village. I think these kids riding around on these stupid bikes with no helmets on at 50 mile an hour, doing wheelies down the middle of the road. Brilliant, very clever. But we do as best. I think we really are top of the tree. We get a lot of commendations from others that I think we do as best. That's all I can say on that. And I get the figures. I think I'd be interested in that, if they've been effective or not.
Yeah.
Because, okay, thank you.
Right. Councillor Durrant.
Yes, I just wanted to add to that. When we did have the Police Crime Commissioner come to the Community Scrutiny Committee earlier in the year, they did highlight that Derbyshire has been included for the first trench of funding to increase our police numbers as well and start bringing them up. Those new recruits should be, I was desperately trying to find in my notes, but unfortunately I can't find them right now, but it's in approximately March 2026. They would be starting off the top of my head, so they are increasing police numbers as well. In regards to e-bikes and e-scooters and the like, they do have that zero tolerance approach of they catch them, they take them, they crush them in 14 days, which is a big issue for the area. But the problem they have is that the police can't, physically knock them off. So the best thing to do is, if people see where they live, is to report where these individuals report to where they live to the police, so they can go and seize them. So that would be something that, if anyone is getting cases in your area of North East Derbyshire, to do so, and we've had some successes in our area with that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Right, the recommendation is that progress against the council plan be noted. All in favour? Any against? That's carried, thank you. Move on to item 9 now, please. The scrutiny annual report. Councillor Durrant.
Thank you. Yes. So the report is of the chairs of the scrutiny committees, and the report is an overview of topics covered by the 4 scrutiny committees during the last municipal year. That is the Business Scrutiny Committee, the Communities Scrutiny Committee, Environment and Services, which are to achieve our objectives of a great place to work, a great place to live well, a great place that cares for the environment, and a great place to access good public services. Now, the agenda report is on pages 67 to 92 of the agenda pack, so anyone watching on YouTube as well can access them and have a read for themselves. I encourage all members to read them, but just to give you some highlights, obviously I'm chair of communities, so I'm going to draw attention to a couple of that. So we reviewed the leisure centres for older children and teenagers, going back to Claycross Active as that was opening. We reviewed that earlier in the year, and we were able to look at that, see how much they were doing. They were doing far more than we expected even before Claycross Active opened, but we were then able to have a look and scrutinise the pricing, and that has been subsequently adopted by Cabinet. So we're making the pricing structure more available to teenagers, young people and people on low incomes. There's been other areas covered as well, such as, for example, business scrutiny in shop fronts, environment with biodiversity net gains, services with councils and councils' financial resilience, among others. I'd encourage everyone to have a read through the report and see what these 4 scrutiny committees have been doing over the past year. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councillor Reid.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Of note, when I read the report, one of the things that was interesting is I think we brought up when we looked at the budget and increasing the, approved the increase of council tax, or some of us did. I brought up the mention of a 4-day work week, which we were reviewing, and the fact that it was on the work program. And I was advised that it wasn't on the work program to review. I understand it was just receiving a report, and was also told it was going to be taken off the work program. But looking at the scrutiny report, it's clearly got an update on the 4-day working week program in the minutes. So if we can get some clarification around that, because again,
Hello, yeah. I will look into it, but the report before you is about the work of the scrutiny committees in 24-25, when it was considered on at least a couple of occasions. So that's probably what it's referring to, but I will double check and let you know.
Right. Anybody else? Right, the recommendation is that we review the annual report. All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That's good, thank you. If we move on now to item 10, Standards Committee Annual Report 24-25. So,
Thank you, Chair. Each year, the Standards Committee puts together an annual report for Council to let you know about its work over the year. Clearly, Council is aware of the work on the Constitution, which comes to you at each annual meeting, but there is a significant amount of other work that's carried out as well. This report covers that work, and the Chair of the Standards Committee will present the relevant items. Thank you.
thank you. Can we call on Kevin Gillett
Yeah.
now to give the report?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't have a great deal to say. I think most of what Council needs to know about is in the report anyway. Our work is really split into two. There's the review of reports, and you can see the list in the paper. Many of those papers actually come to this full Council for comment anyway, or to receive them, so some members will be familiar with them anyway. The other side of our work is in terms of discipline and any misconduct, and I'm pleased to report that is our workload on that is almost non-existent. There's been nothing involving members of this authority itself. There's been minimal involving members of parish councils, and long may that continue. The fewer bits of work that come to us with that regard, the better. The only thing I will do is perhaps just respond to a comment made by Councillor Cubic with regards to my two roles now, and her questioning my integrity and my ability to do that. Perhaps her criticism will be if she actually attended Standards Committee meetings, which I don't think she has for a year, perhaps her comments might carry more weight. But I can assure the whole Council that if there is any problems with the role and any conflicts of interest, I will be the first, as I has always been when such issues arise, to declare it and take the appropriate action. And I just want to conclude by thanking the officers who have supported over the last 12 months with their advice and help. I'll leave it at that, Chair.
Thanks for that, Councillor Gillett. Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Cupid?
Thank you, Chair. A couple of points of personal clarification there. I think it's incorrect to state that whilst I've apologised for the last couple of meetings of Standards Committee, I have been to previous ones over the last year. It would help if they didn't change on a frequent basis. But as a point of clarification, I very specifically earlier when I spoke on the new Cabinet paper member report, I didn't raise anything to do with Councillor Gillett. I raised an issue in relation to the roles, the two roles being a potential conflict of interest. It was nothing to do with personal or integrity, and so I actually am quite offended by that remark. And if you listen back, I didn't raise anything to do with the person in those roles, and I know Councillor Barker understood that and agreed to take that away.
Right, thanks for that. Anybody else? Right, the recommendation is that we note the annual report. All in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Can we move on to item 11 now, please? Questions from members. Can I invite Councillor Clough to put the first question to Councillor Barker?
Thank you, Chair. As written, Chair.
Yeah, is that it? Yeah, fair enough. I think the short answer, it'll not take long then, this one, is no. I have no intention to write into the Secretary of State, but if you want to, you can. So I'd recommend that that's what you do, Stephen. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Clough?
Yes. Thank you, thank you, Councillor Barker, for that straightforward answer. Given that Killamarsh as a parish council within the district has just consulted the public on their latest draft, and the fact that due to the ongoing work on the local plan and a necessary review of current council neighbourhood plans, are the districts still willing to work with parishes to undertake this work, and will there be a cost attributed to this?
Councillor Barker?
That's a fair question. I think legally, I'm looking at David, that we would, and there would be a cost, because in the past, we've reclaimed, or the parishes have reclaimed some of that from the government. It's the government that's stopping it. So if everybody goes for a neighbourhood plan now, I'd imagine the parish council will pick the bill up, but the officer time from here would have to be committed as well to make sure that it fits in with the local plan and all that sort of stuff. My sort of response to some of the what I thought you might say is that basically neighbourhood plans, whilst a good idea, they've also got to link into the local plan. And while we're redoing our local plan at the moment, I know you're halfway through one in Kilmarsh, aren't you? So you're in a funny spot. So, but I don't know. I'm looking to David now. Whether I don't think we can not support you with professional advice, but there might be a cost to that. He's nodding his head. So okay. I think that's where we're at, Stephen.
Thank you, Councillor Barker.
Thanks a lot. The second question from Councillor Rennick to Councillor Pickering. Councillor Rennick?
She's not here, Chair.
Oh, sorry. I'll have to pay more attention at the beginning of the meetings. Third question in from Councillor M. Baker to Councillor Steve Pickering. Councillor Baker?
Thank you, Chair. My question is, given the long period which has now elapsed since COVID restrictions were lifted, is now not the time for the Planning Committee site visits to be carried out in person instead of continuing them virtually, in order to allow committee members facility to acquaint themselves more fully with the nuances and details of each site they are being asked to consider?
Thank you, Councillor Baker, for your question. I think it's a fair point. It's shared by other councillors in this chamber, and you know, it's something that I've started looking at myself. I've asked for that to be undertaken, and I know that David, the Assistant Director, has emailed members of the Planning Committee with suggestions for a way forward. Not everybody's responded. I think they're waiting for responses for that, but we need to look at how that might proceed and progress in the most effective way.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Baker, have you got a supplementary?
The supplementary was just, obviously it's been taken on board, but I take it, Councillor Pickering, that some of the other members have noted what I have seen at Planning Committee, that residents have asked specifically, have we been to the site, have members seen it, have they picked up everything? So I take it you're on board with that as well.
Thanks a lot.
You've switched me off, but yes, we are. So we will be looking at that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks.
Back on again.
Right, and the final question from Councillor Cupid to Councillor Pickering. Councillor Cupid?
Thanks, Chair. Happy to take it sort of as read, but I would just note it's not a political question. It is genuinely, I appreciate we discussed this at the local plan working group. I appreciate officers and members have been engaging constructively on this. It's just we continue to have concerns, so we're eager to raise this to see what else we can do on this.
Councillor Pickering?
Thank you, Councillor Cupid, for your question. Yeah, I mean, it'd be difficult to simplify things. I mean, on this, planning is a very complex matter. I'm sure you'll appreciate that. And, you know, so therefore any consultation in its nature will be quite complex. And I think, you know, if we simplified it and pretended to people that it wasn't complex and it were an easy thing to do, it'd be a bit disingenuous. And we know that there are certainly people who want to go into quite intimate detail about the consultation on the local plan, and if that's not available, we'll be open to all sorts of criticism. So it will be, it is complex. It's not something that we've devised ourselves, that consultation. It's been done in partnership with a recognised body. And part of the reason for that is that when the local plan is submitted to the Minister, If we don't have a consultation that's robust behind that, it actually reduces the impact of what we're trying to be saying. So we need to have some integrity with what we're doing. However, we do know that there are people that don't use online forms and want simpler ways of doing it, and people can respond by email or by ringing in to the planning department and getting a paper format sent out to them. And those details are available on the website, on the local plan consultation page.
Councillor Cupid?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Pickering for your answer. I do appreciate there are statutory responsibilities around the consultation, so we want to obviously make sure that we meet those. Was interested to hear Councillor Pickering mention that the council will accept email, telephone, written submissions. I think that's not been particularly clear and has caused some confusion in communications to date, because I understand we are signposting people to the online form. So perhaps if the council could clarify that and look again at comms just to make sure it's clear to people that we will accept email submissions, etc. Because I think fundamentally at this point, as we know from the local plan working group, we want to know what people think in terms of that key strategy for the district, because there's some difficult decisions here and we don't want to miss that basically. So if we could just have a look again at comms, that'd be brilliant on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, I think that's absolutely right. We do want people to be making any contribution that they think is valuable to them, and it needs to be taken in. I will ask David to have a look, and we will look at comms, and when we have our social media and whatever goes out in the news and things like that, we'll try and make that a bit more explicit. And we've also had a conversation with David today to have a look. When you click on the banner at the top of the first page on the council's website, the first page that comes up, it'll be put on there. It's on there as well. So hopefully we're trying to make it as easy as we can. Thank you.
Right, thanks a lot. Can we move on now to item 12, to consider any motions from members under procedure rule number 10. The first motion is submitted by Councillor M. Baker.
Thank you, Chair. The background to this motion is since 2018-19, people of Wingworth have been waiting for a roundabout to be installed at the bottom of Nottingham Drive on Derby Road and a relief road down to this offices. However, the recent proposals are for a signal system. So the Conservative group have put forward this motion. Council notes the results of the recent consultation regarding the proposals for highway alterations and the installation of new signals at the A61 Mill Lane Junction in Wingworth. Council notes that the proposed scheme is sponsored by this council following the receipt of grant funding by the regional mayor to unlock more new homes and a new depot on the Avenue regeneration site. Council also notes that many views have been expressed towards these proposals during the consultation by local residents and stakeholders, particularly raising concerns in relation to road safety, turning right at Nottingham Drive Junction and traffic flow on the A61 in that vicinity. Council therefore resolves to respect and fully publish the results of these consultation and commits to not pushing ahead with the scheme until those concerns have been properly addressed. Council also resolves to undertake any further design work on the proposals which the consultation responses have highlighted are necessary, and then to reconsult residents and other stakeholders on any revisions to the proposed scheme in that area before any work begins, and undertakes to ensure that the final design of the scheme fully reflects local concerns for highway safety, suitability and usability, and is not just based on cost savings and maximising housing number delivery.
Okay, has it got a seconder? Do you wish to speak now, Councillor Dale?
If I could reserve my right to speak later in the debate, if that's
all
okay,
right.
thank you, Chair.
Councillor Barry?
Thank you, Chair. How do I get my one going? Is it working?
Yeah.
Right. Thanks for this motion, Councillor Baker. At this moment in time, I can't support this motion and I'll try and explain why. Your motion states that this scheme is sponsored by this council. It is not sponsored by this council. It is the Derbyshire County Council who are the sponsors for this scheme, not North East Derbyshire. Derbyshire County Council submitted the proposal to MCA, and it's Derbyshire County Council who will receive the funding to deliver the junction, and Derbyshire County Council requested that we, North East Derbyshire, undertake the consultation on their behalf, which we have done. Your motion also notes that many views that have been expressed towards these proposals. I'm unclear how this can be so, since the consultation outcomes have not yet been published. In fact, we're still collating the responses and drafting the outcome report for Derbyshire County Council. You then say that further the motion resolves to respect and fully publish the results of the consultation and commits to not pushing ahead until those concerns have been properly addressed. Again, it's DCC who have asked us to undertake this consultation on their behalf. We will be providing the County Council colleagues with the outcome report for publication, and we will be happy to make these points to them when we do. And the final bit is that the motion also resolves to undertake any further design work on the proposals, which the consultation responses have highlighted are necessary, and then to reconsult residents on and other stakeholders on any revisions to the proposed scheme in that area before any work begins and undertakes to ensure that the final design of the scheme fully reflects local concerns for highway safety, suitability, usability, and is not just based on cost savings and maximising house number delivery. This, I'm afraid, is not our role as North East Derbyshire. This is the role of the Highways Authority, which are run by Derbyshire County Council. So I hope that answers your motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Doctor. Councillor Gillett.
Thank you, Chair. And I've listened very closely to Councillor Barry's explanation, and I must admit it confirms with the conversation I had with officers, because when I saw the motion, I had a lot of sympathy with some of the sentiments behind it, if I'm honest, because I've been in a similar position to what Councillor Baker is in today. 12, 18 months or so ago, traffic lights were installed in an area that I didn't quite represent in the way that Councillor Baker doesn't represent the geographical location, but my community was highly concerned about it. And obviously, certainly local members in the south of the district will know I'm talking about the older traffic lights at Tesco. And to see that there's been a consultation forced by the County Council over the Mill Lane traffic lights, when there was none whatsoever by the County Council itself over the older traffic lights, and there's been huge concern about that, I was interested to understand it, and that's why I have sympathy with Councillor Baker, because what he's basically saying is, and as a locally elected member, he wants to make sure that his residents, his constituents' views are heard and taken into account. It doesn't mean he or they will get what they want, but they should be heard and they should have an explanation. And that's what I didn't get the opportunity to do, which is why I understand why he's raising it today. But having listened to what Councillor Barry said, it's clear from what the officers are saying that they would feel very uncomfortable about being forced to disclose this information, because they don't believe it's within the gift of this authority to disclose it. It has to go to the County Council. The county will make an assessment of it and then deal with it in whatever way the county's policy and procedures do. And presumably, unless Reform have changed it since the election, that'll be what the previous administration put in place. And I have no doubt that if valid highway issues are raised, that they will be taken into account by highway officers who will give the appropriate advice, and this council will listen to that as well. Nobody in this room, I would think, would want to go ahead with something where the appropriate officers are saying it would create a danger. But I think we should do what we can to help Councillor Baker and his other colleagues in Wingleworth, and in fairness, his colleagues in Tupton as well. So while I can't support the motion for the reasons Councillor Barry said, I do hope that her comment, Councillor Baker's interest can be passed on to the county, and that officers there can talk to him and any other local member here as well, and have a discussion with them as well, so that those views are taken into account. And if the cabinet member does agree to do that, I hope she would also ask, why has the council today at North East been forced to do this consultation when no similar consultation was conducted by the council in Claycross, because it seems to be a different standard for different areas.
Thank you. Councillor Shipman.
Thank you, Chair. I do agree with Councillor Baker that this proposal, and particularly the feedback from residents in my ward, is that this proposal should not go ahead. It's not the right solution. It's far from it. The roundabout is the ideal solution. I think that this council should push for that as an answer to the issues that are created at the end of Mill Lane and Nottingham Drive. Just on the point that this council, it sounds like this council's washing its hands of having anything to do with this. I would like to refer you all to the article that was on the District Council's website, published on the 3rd of June, that says, this public consultation presents our plan for the junction improvements and our proposed speed limit change for a stretch of the A61 through Wingworth to 40 mile an hour. So, which is it? Is it that this council has got nothing to do with it, or is it this council's plan, which it's been promoting ever since the consultation started to begin with? The consultation event was held here. It had mainly district council officers and one highways authority officer. And I must say that that consultation event, to me, was a disaster, because no matter, depending on who you spoke to in that particular room, you got different answers, different statistics, different costs, different timelines. And I think that actually a lot of residents left that confused about what is actually being proposed, whether this is the only option, whether there could be another solution, whether the council would, or this council as well as this county, which I do appreciate, is county making the final decision on what's happening. But it's almost like residents came away from, particularly the ones that were talking to me, that they left feeling like this is going ahead regardless, and the consultation is to make it slightly worse than what it could be if it just went ahead now. They didn't seem like, well, if 95% of residents don't want it, we're going to back out. I definitely got the impression this is going ahead. It's just with what tweaks is it going ahead with? And I don't think that we should be in that position. Residents shouldn't be in that position. And I don't think this council should be promoting that way forward. I think if residents don't want something, we all have to kind of sit back and have a word with ourselves and go, should we really be going ahead with this? As we've seen, and Councillor Gillett touched on, the traffic lights at Tesco petrol station in Clay Cross. The knock-on effect of having them in place means that traffic's now building up when it's not even rush hour. We can't have the same situation here when the A61 is a relief road for the M1. If you put too many traffic lights on the A61, you're just going to back traffic up all the way down it, and it's already a nightmare during rush hour on the A61. But I do agree with part of the proposal that the 40 mile an hour speed limit needs to happen on that stretch of road. And in fact, I would argue it needs to go all the way to Clay Cross and not stop where it does, which is about 100 feet from Four Lane Ends roundabout. I think that the speed reduction needs to go all the way to Clay Cross if it does go ahead. And I do believe that average speed cameras need to be put all along that road to enforce it as well. So I'm supporting this motion on the basis that I do think this council needs to take a position on it. But I do appreciate that it is the county's decision, and ultimately this council really needs to be pushing the county to make the right decision for our residents in this district.
Thank you. Councillor Dale?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm on now. Thank you, Chair. I agree with Councillor Shipman in that it sort of feels like whether on a technicality or whether in reality the district is rather hiding behind it being a county scheme, because certainly from my recollections of being on county, it was very clear that it was a district scheme. It was district that were wanting to promote the scheme, and that's why the pushback was that district ought to then organise a consultation event. If you think about the way that these schemes work when they go to the mayor's office, if you like, the county is responsible for 9 different districts which all have their own priority schemes. So it's not going to, it's not the county that's leading the charge with this. It's been requested by the district and as one of the district's priority schemes. And no surprise that there is quite a sizable piece of land here that's owned by the district council that will have a major uplift in value as a result of this. So it's not really in the county's interest. I do think there's a bit of sort of playing around with language here in terms of the county being the sponsor of the scheme. And I mean, another example of this would be the Bridge Street. Councillor Gillett referred to a different Clay Cross scheme, but the Bridge Street scheme is for all intents and purposes, is a district scheme because it's been run through the town deal but county are the final sponsors. So, as I say, my understanding is very much a district scheme. County are involved because they have to be. It's a sort of technicality more than anything else. And it's a shame that we're sort of hiding behind that because, as I say, it's in the district's best interest to realise this scheme. So why would we not treat it as a district scheme? Councillor Barry said that how would we be able to preempt the views of the consultation? Well, it's pretty obvious. If you go to one of these events and you speak to your residents, you can have a pretty good idea of what the consultation feedback will have been. So I don't think anyone's done anything wrong there by just assuming or inferring that the consultation response will have had many views as it no doubt will have done. And the other sort of final point I would make is that there's always going to be a difference between what's the bare minimum you have to do, which it feels like this is in terms of a highway scheme, and what's actually right for the area. And it does feel like a roundabout is right for this area, knowing what we know about the A61, knowing what we know about traffic counts and everything else, and the impact it will have. In highways technical terms, if you want to go by the DFT sort of baseline, possibly it is adequate, and I don't doubt that the proper process has been gone through, and we've looked at that. But it's what's best for the community, what's best for our residents in Wingleworth and our neighbours in particular on this piece of land that we own. So I would certainly push that, as a district, we do take those consultation feedbacks very seriously, and we don't plough ahead with any scheme that isn't supported by residents, and we look again at whether we can get the funding for the roundabout. We've proved that another scheme is possible. So in my view, we're in a much stronger negotiating position on any potential ransom strip than we were before. So we ought to go back now to the drawing board and see if we can, we can negotiate a better solution for our residents.
Right, thank you. Councillor Reid.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like some clarification from officers, if we can. The timing of the consultation and the new call for sites that we've actually had from now, especially given Clay Cross and Tupton, there's quite a huge call for sites. It doesn't seem like they would have been taken into account with the design and planning phase, and those numbers wouldn't have been added accordingly. So I'd just like some clarification from the planning officers as to whether that would have made it into the planning and design phase.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. So, to be honest, from the planning authority side of things, we haven't been particularly involved in because it's a highways technical matter, to be honest, the junction improvement. I mean, obviously, we are aware of the proposed scheme, the consultation. We're obviously aware of what's happening in terms of the avenue allocation and the progress in terms of developing houses on that land. But specifically in relation to the call for sites, I mean, they're a separate process in that the call for sites that started just before Christmas and ended just into the new year is basically one of the early phases of local plan development, whereby a council asks the market, to put forward sites for us to consider. And the work that we're starting, we're at the early stages of that now, in relation to all of those sites, is assessing the highways impact. But in addition to that, there will be modelling work that is done by the Highway Authority on our behalf in terms of the strategic overview of highway capacity and the impact of all of those sites on the highway network. So it will feature in that work, but from a planning perspective, it's too early to, there aren't any judgments on that, but it will be considered in terms of highway capacity.
Thanks,
Just to clarify, can I clarify on that then?
Yeah.
For this, thank you, Chair. So, David, would that then, these call for sites or these numbers, would it have made it into county's planning phase and their modelling, or would it have been, with their modelling being done at the end of last year, which is my understanding? Therefore, what I'm trying to get at is, yes, I'm new to county. What I'm finding is some of their planning stuff is done on a napkin, in a vacuum, where it doesn't actually take into account all the extenuating circumstances. When I asked this at the consultation myself, I said, did this take into account the current call for sites and what the current numbers are? They all looked at me with a blank stare and they said, no, I don't believe it has. So the current solution that we have proposed, regardless of whether it's a county or a district one, seems to be inadequate anyway.
Can you bring Mr. Brochen in next before we go to Nigel?
Yeah, just the separation in terms of planning. So obviously we haven't gone into planning for the junction. So in terms of the work, what's been considered in the highways development, the consultancy that's been looking at the junction, it's been what the local plan. So the avenue development for the next however many years that's been developed out. So the existing local plan and development around that junction is the capacity that's been put in terms of the works to develop the technical solution. That's what's been considered. Obviously what hasn't been considered is the outcome of the future local plan. We're not at that stage yet.
Thanks, Mr. Broughton. Councillor Barker?
Yeah. Thank you. David, do you want to add something before?
Make Matt's point about the application.
I've obviously listening to this, and just to chuck another thing into this one is that I remember when it all started, and we identified this site, the Avenue site, for development, economic development. We put that into the sausage machine to go through county to MCA. It was supported at MCA from the representatives from the county council. Barry Lewis and Thingy spoke against it. Simon Spencer spoke for it. And whatever the machine came out of the economic development fund, this is, that £1 million is not to resolve highway issues. It's to open up this site for development, to create jobs and housing. So that £1 million came out, and because everybody else were bidding, we thought we'd done well to get £1 million out of MCA, to be honest. If we could get £5 million out on them, all good. And going back to what Kevin said, the Councillor Gillett, is I sympathise with what Neil's saying, that pulling out to Nottingham Drive is a nightmare. We accept that, but if we could revisit it and we get experts in, highway people who are employed by the county council, not us, then if they can say that there's a solution to this that's safe and it works and it's funded, great. Let's crack on with that. I've not a problem with that, but it's not our decision. It's not the district council's decision to do that. All we're doing is carrying out a consultation that we've been asked to do. We'll pass on all that information back to the county, the highways people, and they'll look at it and come up with a solution one way or other. But I do sympathise with the people, especially in Wingerworth, trying to pull up right out to Nottingham Drive is not easy. This might help it, the traffic lights, we don't know. But I think the roundabout option's great if we can fund it. So that's where we are, and given what Councillor Barry said, I can't support it as it stands, this motion.
Right, thanks, Al. You want to exercise your right to reply, Councillor Baker?
Before he does, Councillor Hancock.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see it. Councillor Hancock, sorry, you just popped up. Sorry, David.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that we're kind of losing the crux of what Councillor Baker's motion is here, because we're passing between county and district. The reality is what this motion is ultimately saying is that concerns are being raised, and as the authority that's undertaking the consultation, we need to make sure that they are clearly expressed to the county or whoever is making the decision, because, to be honest, I've heard that many variations come out of this conversation. I'm not clear myself on this. We have a duty. I mean, this is the whole point. It's a consultation. It's not an exercise to say, here you are, this is what's happening, have a look at it, like it or lump it. We are supposed to be getting views, and we have a duty to feed those back. That, I think, is the crux of what Councillor Baker is saying. Yeah, there may be elements of this that we can't do, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. And so I'll be supporting it 100% because I think it's absolutely the right thing to do.
Right, thanks, Councillor Baker.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm glad there are members wishing to support the motion. Obviously, I can understand the position of people who don't want to support it, but yeah, the essence of it is I don't know everything about everything, and I certainly don't know what goes off in all the inner workings of the council, but I do remember reading a cabinet report that said this scheme was put forward was the way forward to get more housing onto that land. And I based my concerns on what I saw at the public consultation. And so while it's only anecdotal, there were a lot of very vocal people saying a lot of things and not many people in support of it. So my concern was driven that work wouldn't be commenced. I heard a rumour that work was going to be commenced ASAP because planning permission was not required. So as I could see it, this council's motions and this council's approval was the thing that was going to initiate it. I do accept that Derbyshire County Council is the highway authority. I'm not that naive. All right, so I'm glad the clarity has come out. There's still a few things I'm not clear about, but the basic principle of the motion, I wish to stand that we're going to look into it carefully. We're not going to do anything that puts residents at risk, and we're going to listen to the concerns. I personally have tried to turn out that junction umpteen times when traffic lights have been placed on that road, some not long ago, and I can tell you, unless somebody lets you in, you are stuck there for a very long time. I have also stood in the bottom waiting to get into Claycross after the installation of the new traffic lights while trying to go to Claycross Tesco, and waited and waited and waited. So the last thing we need on Claycross is another set of lights. And the scheme that was put forward had no lights at the bottom of Nottingham Drive. It had sensors, which nobody could understand whatsoever. They were also concerned about the bus lane. There was a bus stop that was going to be moved onto the hill just below a blind summit. And that was beyond belief. So thank you, members, for considering it. And thank you, Chair, for allowing me to say my piece.
Chair, sorry, really quick point of order. Can I just check with the monitoring officer? Because I'm no clear on whether this is county or district, etc., and I want to support the motion. But do I have to declare an interest being on cabinet at county council? And can I vote?
You're on the cabinet.
At county council, and I'm no clearer as whether this is county council or district council. So do I have to declare an interest and can I vote?
This is a motion before the district council, so it's clearly a district council decision you're making here. But yes, if it conflicts with your role at the county council, you shouldn't take part and should declare an interest.
Okay, well, I declare an interest at this point because I'm no clearer on actually at this stage.
Councillor Gillett.
We're seeking clarification. Could I just ask officers to clarify what I think they said to me, and I think what Councillor Barry said? It's not for this authority to publish the information at all. The motion is asking for the authority to publish it. And I think what they're saying is they don't feel professionally they can. They have to hand it over to the county. We can ask the county to publish it. But if this motion goes through as currently worded, we're asking them to do something that they professionally think they can't do or shouldn't do. Have I got that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Chair, can Matt speak?
Do you want me to have, just to offer clarification? So there was a county council cabinet meeting in, don't quote me on it, April time, might have been March, where there was a decision taken to accept the proposed monies from EMCA, the £1 million, to enable to deliver the scheme. And one of the recommendations was that it was the district council that did the consultation. So it's only right for the district council to respond to Derbyshire County Council with the report, which will be the full assessment of the report, which will go to Derbyshire County Council to consider, and then as the Highways Authority, it goes without saying that the safety aspects and everything else, technical solutions, will be considered.
Councillor Dale.
Is it common for there ever to be a consultation where you wouldn't publish the results, whether it's us or a different council? I just fundamentally think this is a very moot point. You know, it's going to be published. It's a consultation. You would never consult your residents and not share with them the results of what they told you. That it just baffles me that this has even been raised, Chair.
County council.
I think this is all semantics because if we are doing the consultation, that is our consultation to publish the results on. Now, whether we're using that to convince county to go ahead with the proposal or not is a different thing, because we're getting all the data in, we're then giving county reports saying, oh, look, everyone thinks this. But it's actually our consultation, is what you're saying, aren't you? So we've been asked. So we are doing it because county or MCA want to see that we've consulted on the scheme. So it's not that county have said you need to do a consultation and give us the results. What they are saying that so they've commissioned it with us.
Yes.
Okay, so they're paying for it out of the MCA money, or are we paying for it?
Through the chair. No. So Derbyshire County Council asked us to undertake the consultation for a scheme that Derbyshire County Council are delivering.
So are they paying for it, or are we?
So we've put the consultation on, we've put the surveys on our websites through our normal consultation material, so the cost is, we haven't hired a room or anything, so there's very little cost been expended. It's our normal consultation process which we do day in, day out that we've used, but Derbyshire County Council have asked us to do the consultation on their behalf for the scheme as part of their recommendation.
All right. This is the last time we're going to vote. Councillor Baker.
Point of order on this one, Chair, because there's an important legal point here, and you've avoided answering that question. If we are paying, which ultimately it sounds like we are, so it's a straight yes or no, if we are paying for it, we've got legal ownership of that consultation. If they are paying us to undertake it, then they own it. So that question needs to be answered.
Happy to come back. It's less about, do we think it will never see the light of day in the public domain? No, it's Derbyshire County Council that have asked us to undertake it on their behalf. Therefore, we give them the respect in terms of letting them have the report before anybody else. They can publish that data. If they don't publish that data, then we can talk about whether anything needs to be done, whether we need to publish it. I think it's about, if we've commissioned somebody to do a report on our behalf, I certainly wouldn't be expecting them to publish that report before they've sent it back to the people that have commissioned it, and that's the process that we're going through here.
Right. Councillor Baker, then going to move to the vote.
I refer members to Cabinet paper dated the 29th of February 2024, 1.7. In order to unlock the progress of the Southern Access, North East Derbyshire District Council commissioned WSP Highways Consultants to provide up-to-date traffic information and develop proposals for a more deliverable solution, brackets, not the roundabout, close brackets, because that's mentioned in the point above. The work was done in consultation with the Highways Authority, not at the request of the Highways Authority, in consultation with the Highways Authority, which is correct. Are these minutes of the Cabinet proposals correct, or what is now being said at this meeting?
No, just let the officer answer that, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. So that report that was before you there was is there a solution to the junction? At that point in time, we didn't know whether there was a solution to the junction or not. That's what they commissioned, that's why the council commissioned Highway Consultancy in consultation with Derbyshire County Council to understand whether there's a technical solution for that roundabout. From that point on, that then got picked up by Derbyshire County Council once it was understood that there was a technical solution, and that was submitted to MCA by Derbyshire County Council as a priority scheme to unlock development on the Strategic Avenue site. So, to answer your question, Councillor Baker, both are correct. It's the time difference. So one is investigative work, is there a technical solution? And then the other, the consultation is, now MCA have provided funding to Derbyshire County Council to deliver the scheme, and Derbyshire County Council have agreed to deliver the scheme. What is the public opinion on that?
It's a matter of semantics, Chair.
I'm sorry, I said after the last speaker, we'll move into the vote. Can we move to the vote now, please, using your pads to make sure? Sorry, I voted wrong. What do we do?
Just press it again, Graham. It just won't.
Come on.
That's it.
That's it. Consider results here, 418 against 22 and 1 abstention, so the motion's lost. So move on to our motion B now, please, submitted by Councillor Dale. Councillor Dale.
Thank you, Chair. You'll be pleased to know I've picked a motion that isn't a joint county and district responsibility. It's solely a district responsibility, hopefully.
You're both, you can do it.
Firstly, I just want to start by thanking and recognising the hard work of our street scene and environmental health teams. They do a fantastic job in cleaning up fly tip waste when it presents itself, and also in investigating fly tipping across the district, and you know, securing prosecutions against the fly tippers, often in difficult circumstances. I know there's more of it happening than we would want to see, and you know, that creates some real difficulties for the teams. I think we as councillors, though, obviously have the duty to support them as much as possible with the right policy tools in place. You know, they do the heavy lifting, and we can support them with the right policies, as I say. And that's what this motion is fundamentally about. It's about trying to strengthen the deterrence and seeking more wider support from across the community to help deal with the issue of fly tipping. You know, it's no surprise, and I think probably many of us in the room would agree that previously I'm very fond of a zero tolerance approach to fly tipping. You know, and while we were running the council, we did seek to use CCTV as much as possible. We tried to have high-profile prosecutions, including the seizure and crushing of the vehicle, and we did increase the fines to the maximum possible amount allowable at the time. And really, that's to send a clear message to any would-be perpetrators that it absolutely wouldn't be tolerated. And we did see, I think, a reduction of about 20% over those 4 years in fly tipping incidents. And deterrence is all about making the consequences seem real and visible, and stopping people from making them think twice about doing it again next time. And obviously have to give credit where credit's due to the new administration, because I'm really pleased actually to see in the UK Shared Prosperity Fund this year that we did purchase some additional cameras, and we have had some notable prosecutions, including the recent one in Marsh Lane, which are really important, and getting the publicity when we do catch people in the act, and we do sort of name and shame them essentially. It's really important that we do get that publicity out there. And so this motion really is about, it's not about partisanship. We're not trying to make political points here. We're trying to build on that momentum and trying to make further progress. And so a key part of the motion is around deterrence. As I say, it's hitting offenders where it hurts, in their pockets. And that's why the motion is calling for the increase in fly tipping fines to the new national maximum. Because the penalties, the current penalties aren't really always enough to deter people. I believe we charge £400 currently for a fixed penalty notice, although it's reduced if they pay early, which I accept that's the best way to do it. I think the new national maximum allowable, which came in I think in sort of mid 2023, is £1,000. And I do understand the previous response that's been given when we've asked this question before, which is time of hardship. Do we actually stand any likelihood of recovering the funds if we set the amount too high? But for me, that's not the point of having a high fine. The point of having a high fine is a deterrent. It's to make people think twice. If its potential cost is that great, then hopefully people will find alternative ways of getting rid of the waste that aren't so damaging to our countryside and our environment. And we also do want to really welcome about the mobile CCTV, and the additional cameras we've got. I think we went down to only one camera in the whole district, so we've now got a greater supply. But I think lots of us would say, well, my area needs those cameras, and can you put them over here, please? And I think maybe giving some more clarity to the environmental health team around, which areas they monitor, and trying to ensure some good spread across the district. So a bit of a review of the way in which we deploy them and how quickly we can deploy them, because quite often the fly tippers are getting better at spotting them. They're even, I've heard they're even going out and sending people on sort of reconnaissance missions in the evening, shining torches in, you know, in laybys and stuff to try and spot the cameras before they go and do them. And I'm aware also that some of them have been pinched as well, which is really frustrating. So a bit of a review of around how we deploy them and ensuring that we do so rapidly, and maybe that we move them around quite quickly so that we don't, you know, reduce the risk of them being spotted or stolen. And I do think that it's although it is a district council matter, I have sometimes been frustrated by the response of the police and to a lesser degree the Environment Agency in terms of sort of, you know, holding their hands up and saying, well, it's not really our responsibility, it's a district matter. We all really should be working together, and I think that cuts across more than just the police. That's about parish councils. I know my parish council helped get them a bit of funding to purchase their own wildlife cameras, and I think that's a positive thing. It's all intended to help the district in terms of their efforts. But I think parish councils would want to be involved more in that. And we also know that it's not only public spaces where fly tipping happens. It happens, you know, nearly as much, probably as much, or if not more, on private land as well. So I think local landowners probably have a role to play in this, and would want to work with the council if they could, you know, to try and find ways to tackle it. So that's what the motion's really about. As I say, fundamentally it's deterrence, and then it's also about how we can work better across the community. And if that necessarily needs to go to a scrutiny committee, that'll be welcome as well. You know, we know that fly tipping is more than just an eyesore. It's a crime. It's a scourge in our environment, and we need to send a really clear message that we are serious about enforcement and we're ready to act. And so from my perspective, it's all about giving our officers and our communities and partners the tools that they need to be able to try and help us to tackle fly tipping. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Has it got a seconder?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, happy to second and echo what Councillor Dale has said. I guess just to add an additional couple of points in support of the motion, we've seen, particularly in my ward in Shirland, we've seen quite a lot of significant fly tipping events in recent months and the past year. And again, would echo that both the street scene team and the environmental health team have done a fantastic job in terms of attending quickly and also looking for evidence to pursue prosecution. So offer thanks to them. But there is always that frustration. I'm sure they feel it too, and that residents rightly feel that, well, they've got away with it, they've done it, we've had to pick up the cost as a council. And quite interestingly and increasingly, a lot of the big incidents, and there was one in March in Shirland that filled an entire sort of lane and cross-country lane, which was awful. Quite a few of, not necessarily that one, but quite a few of the big incidents seem to be from outside of the district, people doing it, and from outside of the border. And so I do wonder if that's because we're seen to be a lighter touch with the lower fines. So I think that by bringing us into line with other districts in the area, and I know Derbyshire Dales, I think recently upped to the national maximum, I think that just sends out that really strong communication message that, you know, we don't tolerate it and, you know, it's not right for our residents. So support it on that basis, particularly in terms of increasing the fines. And then just to touch on the sort of landowner and private landowner point and the sort of reference to scrutiny committee looking at both sharing best practice but also cross-working, because quite often you get, particularly in the bigger fly tipping cases, that some of it spills onto private landowners, some of it's particularly in rivers, it's down near the Environment Agency, and then you get into this sort of battle of, well, who deals with it? And if I'm honest, other agencies don't deal with it as well as the district council does, because it's our bread and butter. So perhaps a scrutiny review would be a good chance to share that best practice and bring everybody on board, and almost similar to the illegal encampments task force having a bit of a fly tipping task force. So it'd be good to look at that. So yeah, second and fully support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Pickering.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, Councillor Dale makes a very good point. It is something of significant concern throughout the district, and as he knows, particularly where he lives and where I live, we're a real hotspot target for that. You know, the environmental health and street scenes do work very hard in doing that. We've managed to buy a lot more CCTV equipment, and with the additional purchase of cameras and things, they've got a wide range of things to put out now, as has been acknowledged. All prosecutions or fines are all subject to gathering evidence. and without evidence you can't do anything other than clear it up. And so the evidence and the education is really important to do that. And part of that education, as people will have seen, we do naming and shaming of people when they're prosecuted or they've got fines. In our press releases and other things, people are named and their addresses are on there, and they're exposed to the public for the crime that they've committed. It is a crime. However, in this authority with the fixed penalty notices, we only use those in fly tipping cases where it's relatively small amounts. So although it's not accepted and it's not tolerated, and we want a zero tolerance on it, where it's a very low amount, we issue fixed penalty notices. In all other cases, we refer those to prosecution straight away, because they are the most serious ones. I mean, with Councillor Dale refers to punitive measures that are a real deterrent. When you look at some of the figures, that don't bear out the case. There's authorities that fine higher than us and still have worse fly tipping. And we find it's very effective, the levels that we've got in this authority at this moment in time. And if we increase the fines to a higher level and people can't afford to pay them, we've got to be prepared to prosecute, and that costs money. It's expensive to this authority. Once they've been prosecuted, if the court then fines them, we don't get any of that money back. It belongs to the court, nothing comes here. And all we've succeeded in achieving is prosecuting people for non-payment of fines, not for fly tipping. That's what we prosecute for at the end of the day. So the system we've got at the moment, ours is not increasing. We do have significant numbers of large fly tipping that we need to get on top of. Smaller levels that we've put fixed penalty notices on for, Chair, meets with all the standards, and we're better than a lot of other authorities. There's no real reason at this moment in time to increase it. I've said this before, it's always under review. It will be kept under review, and if we get more information that leads us to want to do that, then we'll change the way that we're working. But we're quite successful in this authority the way we do it at the moment. It's something that shouldn't be tolerated by anybody. It's disgraceful that we have to put up with things like that, and we need to stamp on it as much as we can. But just having punitive fines that just, for the sake of it, is not part of the answer. It's the surveillance, the intelligence gathering, the education, the stuff that we put out on social media, in the news and other places, and it's a community push to respond to do that. I know where I live, there are people looking out all the time. We even have residents and local parish councillors who sift through the fly tipping to try and find the evidence and support the district council in its work. That's what we need to be promoting, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Archie. Councillor Shipman.
Thank you, Chair. I take the point that the fines, are more easily payable by those that are committing fly tipping, but when the fine amount is the same price as a skip, the incentive is not for them to be bothered about it, because they've saved on the skip that they should have bought, because they know they can keep fly tipping, and that one occasion that they do get caught, they're paying 400 quid. That's why the current system doesn't work, because all it does is incentivise people to go and fly tip and not get a skip. That's why we need to go for the maximum amount, because we all know they're going to fly tip 5 times before you catch them, if not more. So actually the amount they do end up paying, it's not just that it's £1,000 for one lot of fly tipping, it's actually the other 6 times prior where we've had to go and clean it up. And that's what the fines need to be there for. It's not just being punitive for the person that's caught. It's actually to pay for the council having to clean up this mess time and time again. So I would support this motion. I think we do need to go for the maximum amount. I would like to understand particularly what Councillor Pickering said about we tend to go after those the fly tipping on a larger scale, because I'm fairly sure when I asked a question a couple of months back about how many vehicles we'd been seizing, the answer was 0. So, in what way are we going after these big fly tippers? I would expect to see them vehicles on the back of a truck outside here on Mill Lane and either being scrapped or sold so we can get some money back. Not sending them to court so they get a slap on the wrist and a bit of a fine. Let's get the vehicles off them, and that sends a message to other people thinking about fly tipping that it won't be tolerated. So why are we not using those powers that we have already?
Councillor Gillett?
I must admit, I'm slightly worried about myself because I agree with the sentiments behind this motion. So that's twice today that I've done that. But I do have some concerns. You know, Councillor Dale's right. Fly tipping is a scourge, and this council should be doing everything and anything it can legally do to deter it and to punish people who commit it. I've reported, I think, 2 instances in the last 10 days in my own patch and others in previous months, and I'm sure everybody else has done the same. But I've just got 2 slight concerns about the wording of the motion. It's only the wording of the motion that I have concerns about, and that's why I will be proposing an amendment in due course. First of all, it's whether this council actually has the power to change the figure, and I'm not sure it does. I think that might be an executive decision, but that's not the main concern I have. It's about understanding how fixed penalty notices work, because fixed penalty notices are an administrative penalty that this council can choose to use in an instance or not to use. And if I understand it correctly, the maximum penalty in North East Derbyshire, if I go out today and fly tip, isn't £400, and it wouldn't be £1,000 if this came into force. Depending on how serious that fly tipping is, it would be, if it's summary offence, it would be up to £50,000 and or 6 months imprisonment. And if it's more serious, indictable or either way offence, it would be an unlimited fine and 5 years imprisonment. So they are the maximum penalties for anybody who fly tips in North East Derbyshire today. The purpose of an administrative penalty such as a fixed notice is to avoid all of those cases of fly tipping going to court. And believe it or not, there is a lot of academic research into fixed penalties and when they should be used and when they shouldn't be used, because I remember having to read it many, many years ago. Simply increasing it to £1,000, therefore, doesn't increase the deterrence factor in itself. It might just result in more cases going to court. And the thing to bear in mind is, for the latest published statistics for court proceedings, 1 in 10 cases that go to court don't end in a fine. They either end in a acquittal or a discharge. And the average fine for somebody who goes to court for fly tipping is £530 in the figures published for the year 23-24. So we could create, if we're not careful, the inverse, the prospect of going to court might be cheaper than getting a £1,000 fine, subject to victim surcharge and costs. I get that as well. So I'm not against the principle of what you're saying, Councillor Dale. I just think we need to think through the consequences of our actions and make sure it's done properly. The second thing that's missing from your resolve is something you talk about in your preamble. In your preamble, you talk about confiscation of vehicles used in the commission of these offences, but you don't deal with that in your resolve. And I would like that to be explored as well. There are whole issues about that and how the power is exercised. I don't, you know, I've dealt with it in a different capacity many, many years ago, and I think it would be helpful if elected members of this authority could comment on the current policy and make an informed recommendation to Cabinet as to whether or not some of these things should be changed. And that's why I'd like to propose an amendment that I think gives you everything you want, but it suggests all of it goes to scrutiny at this stage, including considering whether or not the figure should go up from 400 to 1,000 or something in between. And I think officers have a copy of the proposed amendment. So that's principally, Councillor Dale, the only difference. It's just that everything goes to scrutiny at this stage, and we invite one of the scrutiny committees, the one with the capacity to do it the quickest, to get on and have a look.
Can we just take a few minutes while the amendment goes round and have a few minutes to digest it?
Yeah, I've got one.
No, we could digest. We should read it.
Just go another week.
No, well, Kevin moved it, didn't he? You were going to say. They were asking if he accepts the amendment. That should be seconded.
Chair, now everybody's had a chance to read it. I hope it's taken in the spirit it's given. It's designed to improve it and make sure everything's properly considered, and then the recommendations can go to Cabinet. And I'm sure if it's an evidence-based recommendation, Cabinet will take it very, very seriously. I'm happy to move it on that basis and either have it seconded or invite Councillor Dale to accept it.
Right. Has the amendment got a seconder?
Yeah, am I on? Yeah. Yeah, I'll second that. And again, if you, we'll wait and see what Alex got to say. But I will take that spirit that I think it's an informed decision. And I know there's arguments for and against these fines, and as Kevin said, there's a lot of technicalities to that. If the evidence comes back from that scrutiny committee that works, that the £1,000 is proved to be successful in other districts, then I think we go for that, whatever the scrutiny committee comes back with.
Right, Councillor Down, do you accept the amendment, Councillor?
Yeah, I am happy to. As I say, it was meant in a non-partisan way, and it feels like a non-partisan amendment, so I am happy to accept. The one thing I would ask is, clearly it has to go to Cabinet. Every scrutiny committee makes recommendations to Cabinet, but given it came from full council, it would be good if it could come back to council as well once that process has been through, if that's okay. But otherwise, yeah, happy to accept the amendment. And would also just add, I mean, I take the point around fixed penalty, the difference between fixed penalty notices and cases going to court, and the point's well made. I suppose from my perspective, there's a perception issue here as well, which is that if you tackle the smaller incidences and you clamp down very heavily on them, hopefully you make very clear that we're not a district that welcomes fly tipping in any form, and hopefully that has a knock-on effect. And also, if the average of court proceedings is 530, well, it may be that we can actually deal with more under fixed penalty notices and prevent them even going to court and actually get better retribution of costs. But obviously these are issues that would have to go to a scrutiny to understand, so happy to accept the
thanks a lot, Alex.
Just to agree with what you're saying, there is a perception issue here, but the last thing we want to do is go along with perception if it causes some unintended consequences. And all I'm saying is that we should think it through, look at the evidence. If there's a strong evidence-based case for making change, I'd be the first to support it. But I'm conscious that there are issues that the ordinary person in the street probably wouldn't think of, and we could end up meaning fewer cases get dealt with by way of a fixed penalty and more go to court that needn't go to court. And the last thing any of us want to do with an overburdened judicial system that's really, really struggling is to send more cases to court, particularly if there's an incentive to have a trial, because that puts officers here to great lengths to bring a case up to prosecutors' rule standard, to have repeated court hearings and then to conduct a trial. And we don't want that, and certainly the court doesn't want that. So, I think we're in agreement, actually, so I'll shut up at that point.
Right, thanks a lot. While we're in the spirit, can we move straight to the substantive motion? All in favour? That's carried.
First one we ever had.
Yay!
Right, item 13, I have no urgent business. I'd like to thank you for your attendance and close the meeting. And England still need one wicket.
Well done, Chair.